Hey, good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Lacy Johnson podcast. Hey, by the way, go out to lacyjohnson.com and subscribe and click the bell for notification. Got a merchandise store. Go out there and take a look at that. But probably the most important thing I'd like to hear from you and your feedback. I've been talking with my staff to see can we set up a call in. A lot of them don't like that idea, but we'll see where that goes. Second thing is today is our first day of significant snow here in Minnesota. I know some of you in some of the sunnier parts of the country, you think we're crazy to live here, but up until recently, it has been such a great state. The Twin Cities have been such a great metropolitan area to educate yourself, raise your family, start a career, create some wealth, build some wealth, that it was worth the cold weather and the snow. In fact, one of the most enjoyable weekends I've spent, I should say, is ice fishing out on the lake. In an ice house, I guess you call it, fish house. And look, we had stereo music, we had high definition television, we had beer in the refrigerator. Now, we wouldn't drink a beer unless we caught fish. So that was the stipulation we put on us. But the point I'm trying to make, winter can be a lot of fun. I just remember, some of you know, me and my wife have two boys, and it was especially fun sledding in the snow during the wintertime. So anyway, it's not as bad as it sounds. I know when I was growing up and you'd hear minus 20 degrees in Minneapolis and you say, how do people live there? But it's pretty much worth it. Like I say, until recently, where we got some of these woke politicians with woke policies, and that has led to a destruction of downtown. It's led to crime. It's led to a whole lot of bad things. As a matter of fact, and I wasn't planning on saying this, but I'm seriously thinking about moving out of the state because I see the direction it's going in. Item number 3, I got a great technical staff here, podcast engineer, I'll call him. I'll give him a title on the air right now, podcast engineer. And you should know, and I hope he doesn't mind me telling you this, Sharon, his wife may call him any minute now, and he has to rush off to the hospital. So this podcast can be anywhere from 5 seconds starting now to 30, 40 minutes. Just bring me back a lot of memories when my two sons were born. One, we had induced labor, and we timed it, which went pretty cool. Another one, they called me on a Friday at work at about noon or so. And my initial inclination was that it was a false alarm. But I was just glad to get off early on Friday afternoon, even if it was a false alarm. Interesting thing there, both of my sons were born on a Friday. One at 5:12 and one at 5:23. And when I look at their baby pictures, I can't tell them apart. So that's that. Now, we talked about where the trend or direction of the state of Minnesota. I kind of hinted that I might be getting the heck out of here. And a lot of it's just based on the last election. I just don't like the direction that we're headed. I have seen what happens when woke people are in charge of government in places like Seattle and San Francisco and all up and down the West Coast. I mean those. Whew. But just the West Coast, man. I'll leave it at that. In New York, and so I've seen what woke government has done to places, and I see it coming here. I mean, they totally destroyed the beautiful Twin Cities. And transitioning into the election, I don't know what people be thinking. Look, I know an issue like abortion, I can understand sometime how it may override all other issues. But, the interesting thing there to me is, outlawing abortion, to me, it's kind of like outlawing marijuana. It sounds good on paper, but in practice, anybody can go find marijuana anytime they want. And I'm thinking that's going to continue to be the case with abortion, even though it's been pushed down to the state level from a legislative standpoint, as I think the Constitution demands. I don't think any woman is going to want an abortion and can't get a legal abortion somewhere. And this whole scaring of people are going back to back alleys and coat hangers and stuff, that's just a overkill and appeal to people's emotion and irrationality. So that's all I got to say about the elections this time around. The great red wave that was predicted did not happen. And I'm on public record of indicating I think the Republican Party is just out of touch, man. I mean, they really are. And I tell my friends, look, we want to get to the point one day where we're not dealing with all this group ID and people are being judged as individuals based on the content of their character, but we're not there yet. And until we get there, people think group, and all kinds of ways I could approach this, but I'll just say that all I know is that all of my friends, Democrat, Republican, Independent, whenever they see an image of the Republican Party, they see mostly white people. And that's not going to cut it. And the other thing is, you got to connect with people, individuals, and institutions in these communities. You cannot win over votes by just putting a particular face in front of people and saying, hey, they look like you, vote for them. I think I proved you have to have people embedded in these communities. You have to have personal relationships with a lot of people in the different diverse communities. You have to have been in their homes and sat down at their table and had dinner with them for people to have enough trust, and respect in what you're saying to listen to you. And by listening, sometimes change their positions on issues and actually support what your stances are. And so this is what I'm trying to tell people. And I think it's rather bad for our country when we just have districts where it's a natural outcome, where certain parties just know they don't have any competition. And once again, I expressed last time, I love competition. I don't have a problem with any competition. And we need to get in there to compete. Now, my concern from the election, once again, I mentioned earlier, is that what they've done to this city, what they've done to our community, and I'm just be straight up front and 100 here, what the Democrats have done to the state of Minnesota. I don't know how they can get, to be honest with you. And I say this, I hope objectively, I don't know how these people keep getting elected. Well, I do kind of know. People vote based on the information they receive. And it's been my experience that most people have the good intentions. Most American voters have good intentions. Most of them have fairly decent hearts, good hearts. But why they vote a particular way depends upon the information that they are receiving. And right now, there's basically two knowledge bases that people get information from. One is just totally partisan and support the Democrats, and I think that's about 90%, 95% of the media, and so that's a large advantage. And the other one, partisan and support Republicans. That's about 5%. These are not scientific numbers. And the Republicans are going to come out on the short end every time. And you pair that with some other things I mentioned. I was just telling someone else, the whole public education system is liberal leaning. Hollywood, entertainment, and movie and TV industry is liberal leaning. The music industries and the celebrities, they're all liberal leaning. Big tech is liberal leaning. And so those are structural issues that will always give the Democrat advantage. Now, I'm going to end up, we're going to have our guest, Ramon, I promise you, part 2 of his story. We're going to delve into that a little bit and take a look at the criminal justice system. But I lost my thought there, but you edited it out. But my main point is this, and I'm going to end with this. Look, I tell people, I just believe in the principles of the Bible, the Constitution, and things like that. And then I believe in the ideal of America. And I will always respect the choice of the voters as long as it's done in a fair and legal way. I have to end with this, and I challenge anyone out there who disagree with me to come on and debate me about it, and I'll make arrangements for that. Especially in Minnesota, the current system, voting system, is set up to allow people to cheat, from registration to counting the votes. And I said this before, and I know these things. I'm not going off by what anyone telling me or what they're saying on the news, or because I'm partisan, or I'm a denier, or I'm a conspiracy theory. These are things I know personally for myself. And I tell everybody, if you have your money in a bank and there are more than one door to the vault, if they know that financial controls are not that good and you cannot perform an audit, I would say at least 99 times out of 100, the people in charge of that bank knows it and they are cheating. And that's what I have to say on that. But once again, we respect the fact that we vote here. Now, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds on this thing, but some people wonder how much our votes count as individuals. And it's mainly because they understand that there are people influencing our votes that we don't even know that that's what they're doing, that subconsciously they're, and it's called public relations. They're forming our opinion. Now, public relations used to be called propaganda, but it got a bad name, I hear, after they found Hitler was using that in Germany during World War II. So they stopped using propaganda, started using public relations. But it's all based upon what really moves us to act and to think. And it's not logic, by the way. It's our emotion and instincts and our group ID and things like that. And there are people who know this and who manipulate this in us, and we don't even understand that's what's going on, and they write about it. And once again, I always like to refer people to the writings of Edward Bernays, and you'll understand what I'm talking about. Anyway, enough on that. We're going to bring on our guest today, Mr. Ramon Nicholson. We're going to pick up where we left off a few weeks ago due to the technical difficulties. And we'll probably start with the 64,000 question that's on a lot of on the minds of a lot of people in our audience. So hang in there. I'll be back in a minute. Well, I'm back. Unfortunately, I don't have my scheduled guest today, Ramon Nicholson, for part two of our interview on the criminal justice system and his personal story of being incarcerated for a crime that he didn't commit. And we were going to really dig into that. There's a lot of issues to explore there. First, we were going to ask the question that probably is on some of my audience minds. How do we know he's telling us the truth about false incarceration? And I think that's a good question. We're going to delve into that with Ramon if we can ever get him on here. And we're just having a series of technical and logistic issues, and we will get them resolved. We will get Ramon interview part two because we just have to be tenacious in life, and we're going to be tenacious in life and get this done one way or the other. In the meantime, here I am filling in, improvising again, and I guess since the topic is going to be for part two of our interview, or even part one of our interviews, the criminal justice system, I thought I'd spend a little time talking about that. First of all, I was reading in our local paper, Star and Tribune, that the criminal justice system is failing a lot of our youth. And my reaction is, duh. Not only is the criminal justice system failing them, the foster care system is failing them. The prison system is failing them. The whole justice system is failing them. And this is where I'm going. Look, and I'm pretty upfront about my views of government, and it's basically the views of the framers of the Constitution. Some of them looked at it as a necessary evil. Now, I don't know how we evolved to the point today where over half of our population, I'm just guessing here, love the government. They want them in their lives. They depend on them for solutions. And in some of these communities like mine, and most of the people know I live in what they consider the tough part of town here in Minnesota. I don't consider it tough. I know the people and stuff. But we keep thinking we can come up with some type of government programs to replace a nuclear family. It's not going to happen, people. It is not going to happen. And by the way, I am very familiar with the foster care system. My wife and I was a foster parent. Pretty familiar with the prison system. I was a motivational speaker that went into the prisons here in Minnesota. Talked to a lot of inmates. So I got some idea. Plus I read, I read and study stuff too. But I always like to pair my quote unquote intellectual academic exercises with real life boots on the ground experience. And this is where I'm getting to. That study that says the criminal justice system is failing our youth, juvenile justice system is failing our youth. I know that's predictable. And I don't think they'll ever do an adequate job of serving our youth, because really, until we understand and accept, and by the way, I'll be glad if I'm proven wrong on this, but until we understand and accept there's nothing to replace the nuclear family, that is, to me, the fundamental foundation of society, fundamental building block of society. And so that's not going to ever work. And I'm going to move into it here. And like I say, I work with a lot of youth gone into prison. And a lot of what we are trying to solve, which is another reason we'll never solve them, on a racial basis, on a gender basis, on a sexual preference basis, will not get solved. Because most of these issues are a lot more complex than that. And whenever you start focusing on one factor or one determinant for complex issues, you are bound to fail. Now, there's one exception. There's such thing as luck. You can, for you poker players out there, you understand what I'm saying. If you're non-poker players, go out and Google this. You can draw to an inside straight every once in a while and hit it. But the odds are very low that you're going to be successful. And so what am I saying? We got to address fundamental problems, quit coming up with these bogus government programs that want to patch up all the fundamental issues that we're having with the family. Now, and I mentioned just looking at race, and that's what it did a lot in this article. Look, in fact, I would strongly suggest that instead of all these isms that we talk about, we start looking at culture. And I tell everybody, a lot of things that we view through the prism of race is really a culture issue. Now, let me give you an example. Chicago during Prohibition, you had certain fundamentals. You had a product that was in demand by the general public, and government officials and other people in their ultimate wisdom think they can control something like that. Well, you can't. Yeah, it's like our war on drugs. I was telling someone the other day, I don't know anyone who has a desire for any illegal drugs that can't find them. And so it's really not working. And where I'm getting to with Prohibition Chicago, you got a product that's illegal. You got a certain group that's people that pushed down low on the totem pole. And in those days, it was Italians and Jews. And because the product was illegal, because people were in demand, they came together and a criminal enterprise sprung up that was surrounded by violence. Now, fast forward to Chicago today. You got illegal drugs. You got people in those poor communities who's been disenfranchised. And guess what? They're going to earn a living in those illegal drugs, and violence is going to follow. And the point is, it has very little to do with the race versus just the culture and a certain culture develop around it. And just a few more things. The people who are coming up with these solutions either do not know what they're doing or do not care for what they're doing, or a combination of both. And some of these solutions that they come up with that's more a view towards getting votes than actually solving the problem. I spoke about not going about doing this properly and doing the right analysis. My background is technical. What we learn is, and this is probably very important, no matter how intelligent, no matter how educated people are, no matter how hardworking they are, what engineering taught us is that you have to have a problem-solving methodology that you go through every time. And anybody in a technical background knows this. We have a certain methodology where we do the analysis, we define the problems, we go in with no biases on what the answer is. We're data, knowledge, and logic driven. That is not what I see out here. And that's one of the reasons that we are not solving these problems. And I'll give you an example. And a lot of my, I'm going to just be honest, a lot of my black friends don't like this, and I don't understand why. But I tell them, twice as many unarmed whites are killed every year by police than blacks. Now, from a problem-solving methodology standpoint, I would want to look into why everybody, all unarmed people, are being killed by police. Not just that. So right now, we're just looking at blacks that are being killed by police, and we're making a racial issue without the data necessarily to back it up. And I could go into it even more detail because I got a lot more data. So those are the type of things that I think we need to do. Now, culture. I'm going to give you a few examples, and we're going to wrap it up here, of what I mean by culture. Like I said, I have done prison ministry. I ran into a 35-year-old gentleman, young man, who said to me, I'm 35 years old and I have not worked a day in my life. I have not held a job a day in my life. He said, I've been living the street life, player, pushing, everything, because everybody I know, that's what they did. My dad did it, my granddad did it, my uncles did it. That's what I call culture. Now, to really come up with a solutions for this young man, we need to understand that and how he feels. And a lot of it is just how people feel and perceive things. By the way, he wanted to be an electrician, and I helped him go to tech school to be an electrician. A couple other quick stories. So I'm a football coach, amateur football. My son is on the team. By the way, this is like grade school. My son is on the team. By the way, he went on to be all-city in football. But we're out there practicing one day, and these three little children, runs up to me, two girls and a boy, and the young boy looks up at me and say, don't everybody have a record? He meant a prison record, a jail record. And I thought how sad that is. And I don't think people who are trying to solve these issues understand these type of things. Even sadder, I think, we had grown adults who grew up in the inner city. And they're adults nowadays, they stand around laughing about how they used to steal people's bicycles. And I never thought that was something, once you get grown and you look back on some things, you should understand it's not funny. For grown men to understand that stealing is not funny, who do not understand that stealing is not funny, they're in a bad mindset to help with government programs or any kind of programs. And then finally, and I was going to talk to our guest Ramon about this. I remember Ramon saying to me that every black person, male he knew, had been to prison. And think about that. That's sad. I go to the barber shop here in the community, and one thing that strikes me, these guys sit around and talk about being in and out of prison like it's nothing, and almost sometimes like it's a badge of honor. And unless we understand those type of things and understand the impact of a lot of the negative music that has evolved from hip hop, where we're calling our women the B word and hoes and thoughts and things like that. And by the way, while we're on that subject, have you ever noticed that you cannot offend any group per se with what you call them or how you refer to them, but for some reason, we as a country and we as a community accept calling black women all kinds of names. And some of that because we are guilty of it ourselves. You can call a woman, excuse my language, a bitch, a hoe, a thought, or whatever you want, and there's no outcry. Now call a trans or he or she and they don't like it, and they will cancel you on social media. You'd have to issue an apology. And I'm really concerned about that. But once again, it's up to us to fix that issue. So I've, as John Milton, the poet, says, I've touched the tender crops of quills of various crops. And I need to wrap it up. I'm filling in for our interview with Ramon. But to summarize what I'm saying, when we look at the criminal justice system, when you base it and totally focus on group ID, whether it's race, gender, sexual preference, or whatever, I don't think we're going to solve most of these issues, especially most of these issues in the black community, as long as we're looking at them only in terms of race. We're not taking into consideration family configuration. We're not taking into consideration educational level. We're not taking into consideration willingness to work, values, and things like that. And we hope to come back. We're going to eventually catch up with Ramon and solve these technical and logistic issues. He's out of town a lot. And bring your part too. But in the meantime, I just wanted to give you a few ideas to think about. Probably wasn't one common theme, but I hope you can, I just threw out a lot of dots that I hope you can connect and understand, first of all, that the criminal justice system does not work for a portion of our population. It'll never work for a portion of our population. And that we need to perhaps, and I strongly suggest, start talking about culture more so than these other group ID things. So hope that shed a little light on some of these subject areas, and I promise to weave it more tightly when we're talking to Ramon and talking about the criminal justice system, because I have specific ideas of what needs to be done to help correct a lot of fundamental issues in the system. And we're going to talk about, and by the way, like I say, I don't only read, I go out and do my field work. I've talked to the head of the National Defense Lawyers organization, and he blew me away too. It's amazing that most of the people who are involved in the criminal justice system, even when it's obviously gone awry, they're going to defend it. And I suppose it's self-preservation. But there are things that we can obviously do. I think the whole new Innocent Project, where you're actually looking at people's DNA and using DNA to exonerate people who were falsely imprisoned for life and they're sitting on death row based on eyewitness testimony and cellmate saying he said he did it, and all that type of dangerous type of aspects of our current criminal justice system. We're going to dive into that. And the people in charge of it. I heard someone said that you have to remember, talking to a politician that we are dealing with institutions. It's the institutions of the justice system. It's the institution of defense attorney. It's the institution of public defenders that we're dealing with. And we have to realize that, and that institutions look to preserve themselves. And after a while, culture sets in, and they don't even see the issues in the system, even though the results are saying, obviously, you got issues here. Anyway, Lacy Johnson, we will overcome our technical difficulties and our logistic difficulty. Eventually, we're going to be tenacious on this thing. We got a couple of nice guests coming up within the next couple of weeks that you'll be hearing about. But in the meantime, go out to lacyjohnson.com, like my episode, sign up for notifications, support the program. You can donate to the podcast, because we want to grow and fine-tune our production and our presentation. actually fine-tune me as the host. And we're working on all those things and eventually bring you the best podcast that can be. I don't know whether I ever be a Joe Rogan or anybody like that, but you shoot for the stars. So go out and support the podcast, and look forward to talking to all of you next week. Thank you.